Man, I keep cutting it closer and closer. One day, one of these streams, you guys are going to see an empty chair as I'm scrambling to get back to my desk. But that day is not today. This is a monthly AMA Q&A thing that I do. I try to focus it on hex crawls, but I don't mind talking about anything that's got folks as fancy. Really, I'm here for you. So this is all about what I can help you with. Is there any questions you have anywhere you find that things have come up, questions I need answering, stumbling blocks, obstacles, theories, philosophies, systems, anything at all. In the meantime, while I'm waiting, I don't really have anything. Oh, one thing I was thinking about, I got it was messing around here, scrolling up and down the map. One thing that I've been thinking about is the role of the town, right? The role of the town, one that is been enmeshed in, I mean, any type of D&D game you're playing, whether you're doing a wilderness exploration or whether you're doing dungeon delving, right? The town is central, this place where the PCs come from. But I wonder, for me, and you could feel free to chime in and let me know what you guys think. I've been thinking that it might be interesting to kind of demote the town a little bit. Demote's not the right word. Make towns less prominent. Make towns not the most often encountered unit of settlement. And kind of going back to sort of keeps and villages as being sort of the first things you find. Now, for me, if you go back to say, look at keep on the borderlands, you go to a keep, and the keep is essentially a self-contained town. But there you have lots of commerce. And part of what I'm wondering is if it makes sense or what it would do to the game if, especially initially, and as you're moving around the map potentially, that the kind of commercial, the sort of capitalist trade that we're used to was basically removed, or at least made much more niche, for example. So what I'm thinking about is, if you think about a town, you think about a village or a cluster of villages that are near a castle, and you have to have a castle or keep or something, because presuming that the place isn't fully, domesticated, maybe the right way, then you're going to need a point of protection. And we can use this for example here. Here we've got, and I never know how big these hexes are. If they're 3 mile, 6 mile, I feel like this might be, I don't know. I'm not sure what the scale is of this, because I didn't make this map. I just pulled it off of Reddit eons at this point ago. Here you have Judd, which I'm going to just say for the record, seems like it's a keep. And then here you have these around here in this hex where the keep of Judd is. And then in these neighboring hexes, you have probably a number of villages. And putting aside for that, I'm not sure what it is about these grounds and not all these other ones, like what makes this particular little area kind of a little, outlier of farming and whatnot, but you have these kind of gaps. I'm not sure what that stuff means. We're not going to get into it. It's not important for this. So you have Judd or Jude. Judd. I like Judd Nelson. Naomi Judd. The keep castle tower of Judd. Okay. And then you have these villages out here. What was out here? And out here. You're a party, you show up, you head in here. Instead of saying, oh, well, look, here's a town, and you can just go to Ye Old Adventurers Supply Company in the town and pick up all your stuff. Okay, great. Like, what if we removed that? What if we said, no, you're going to have to, these villages here, they don't have any commerce at all. This is farmers. Maybe they've got amongst them a few things, but probably not even that. Probably everything that is important is tied to the keep in somehow. Maybe there's a blacksmith that lives in one of these. Maybe there's a Fletcher or I'm trying to think of who does arrows. Fletcher's does arrows, right? Or bowyers. Maybe, probably not even, maybe, but they're probably at the keep, or even if they're in these villages, they answer to the keep. They're not open for commerce. They're doing things for their family and then potentially supplying the military or the whatever the support of the keep. So what does this do, right? So we say, okay, all right, Todd. Well, now you don't have any towns. There's no town here that we can deal with. So what happens when we need stuff? It doesn't help us. Like, what are we supposed to do? Well, you have some options. The villagers, they might have some stuff. I mean, they probably have extra things like food and things maybe that they've gathered up, if that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for food, oh, hey, we need to resupply, we need food. Maybe you can make a deal with one of the farmers, or maybe not, right? So that's the important thing. Maybe for some things you can deal directly with the villagers, but they're not looking really for silver or gold or whatever the currency is. The currency is going to be a very limited use to them because these folks here around Judd, they're not, 99% of them are never going anywhere. Maybe something's happening over Mewin, and I'm guessing there's some road here. Gotta be. How could there not be? Maybe they head to Mewin for something special, like the Mewin's in caps. Maybe it's a capital type place. So maybe there's a coronation, a Mewin, a new religious figure, a king or prince or duke or whatever is crowned in Mewin. Maybe you end up going to Mewin once in your life. Something that you talk about. Oh, my father went to Mewin once. Blah blah blah. Hey, Frederick. Thanks for the reminder. Yeah, sure. If you're feeling it, don't forget to like the video. So you may never. So most of these folks living out here around Judd, never leaving Judd, and there's not much to buy. Not much to buy. Man, it's keep. Hey, Daniel says not going anywhere. Sounds like me. I kind of wish sometimes I wasn't going anywhere. I feel like I'm going too many wares. So then there's nothing really for them to buy. What are they gonna do with some silver? Maybe they can hand it over to the Judd, Lord of Judd, but maybe it's not even a huge concern to him. What is it? The amount of currency that he takes to matter to him is probably a lot more than the entire wealth of Judd, the Judd environs combined. It's not meaningful to him either, unless you get to certain levels. And that's another thing we could probably talk about as well. How would we, or what would be interesting ways to differentiate between, say, your domain economy and your sort of everyday, I guess communal economy versus a domain economy. Frederick says there's no road to travel. You build a road and you'll leave. That could be. They might have done that. They might have built this road, and then was it in Fantasia or somewhere that had or no, maybe it might have been in the Disney's Alice in Wonderland, the dog with the tail it's a broom, and it brushes up the road behind them so that they end up trapped around Judd. So what this forces you to do, so what I'm getting at is, okay, you can get limited things from the villagers, maybe food, maybe some raw materials. Maybe you say, hey, man, I really need some arrows. And maybe you see a guy who used to be a hunter. Somebody's like, well, I got some extra ones or something. I'm not back in my hunting days. I did this, but I'm not anymore. So you're kind of welcome to them or whatever. But most likely just handing them over some coin, not going to do it. You're going to have to do something, which then becomes a hook to either do something, right? So then you have a choice. You can either bargain with goods, and you can have fun with then putting stuff in your loots, your treasures, that essentially, even though they might not have huge monetary value, are going to be useful. Maybe if you found, I don't know, 100 ancient beaver pelts that were or not even ancient, 100 beaver pelts in someone's hoard, then actually becomes something that's valuable. Maybe the monetary value is not that high, but that's stuff that people can use. Like, I can use that. Winter's coming. I could use those beaver felts to knit myself a beaver blanket. I don't know, a new cloak. Heck, the Lord of Judd may be thinking, I can have myself the kind of fur-lined cloak that I've always felt that a man in my station should have. I could now have that. So they become kind of bargaining figures. And since you're in this kind of village area, villages are all about my interpretation of village beyond size is that villages are about raw materials, mostly agriculture. So if you're a village, you don't have commerce. Towns is where commerce, trade, and governing spawn once you've gotten a certain size, you've basically spilled outside of the kind of castle. Hey, Terrence says, fashion forward peasants. Yeah, could be. Could be. And here's a sip of some of that Many Worlds tea that I got earlier today for the working man. So yeah, so you got these raw materials. Maybe you can barter in town. Well, hey, I don't have any. We need some food. We need some arrows. We need some whatever. And maybe they have some, maybe they don't. So maybe you can do some bargaining there with the peasantry, with the local folk. But really, the key point is you're going to what I'm driving at, what I'm thinking is the main thing that I think maybe I would like out of a system like this, if it were going to run the world in this way, is that it pushes the players to have to interact with the Lord. You're going to have to go to that keep at Judd and deal with whoever's there. You may not want to, but you lost your sword. You got this other thing, but it's all bent out of shape and it can't keep an edge. And so you've said, and so it's been determined that it really needs to be reworked, reforged, or maybe you're just gonna have to chuck it in. You could chuck it in a well, but you're gonna need something new. Something has to be done to it. You're not gonna do it. The blacksmith, even if he's in one of these villages and doesn't live in the castle proper, is probably like, man, I can't take that. If I'm doing horseshoes or things for the locals, or I've got the Lord's orders. And if you want me to do this thing for you, especially in any kind of time frame that's approaching soon, is you're gonna have to go ask the Lord. You're gonna have to talk to the Lord. So I see that you're pushing the party to interacting with, at first, these kind of local low-level dignitaries or despots, however you want to frame them. And I think that, what I think it might do for you in the game is, one, it's just like plot hooks, right? It's like, oh, plot hooks, right? You may not want to. Maybe the party's like, we don't want to do this, and we don't want to do that, right? Maybe they're kind of dithering. But if they need supplies, the only supplies they get from the Lord, and they're like, well, we have 50 silver, and the Lord's like, you can keep your 50 silver, or actually give me my tax that you owe me anyway for just being here. I'll take 10 just for thank you for revealing your revenues, which now I may tax. But the rest of it, keep it. That's not important to me. What's important to me are these things. And if you want this, you're going to have to do this for me. And the party, of course, can feel free to go, well, let's think about it. And then we're going to fly to Mewin, fly, you fools. They could just do that. But they are, but there's a hook. There's a hook with, a little bit of a consequence. They've gone now to seek out the aid of this Lord. And if they just turn them down and run away, well, then you have that's something that they're doing, right? They're turning their back on this Lord. Maybe some lords will forget about it within the day. Maybe other ones might hold that grudge a little bit. Oh, I remember when they came asking for favors, and when I told them what they needed to do, suddenly they fled. Suddenly they told me they'd be back in the morning, and they were gone. And I think either outcome, any of those outcomes is good. Any of those outcomes, I think, is a positive, does positive things for your game in terms of, one, well, it's just more plot hooks, a way to get your party into the mix. And it kind of pushes them to just actively go into it. Because you go to the town, you can always have the shopkeeper could say this, right? But there's not a lot of teeth around what the shopkeeper may say. And oftentimes we don't think of the shopkeepers as saying, oh, listen, I'll give that to you, whatever. And some of it, and also it might strain the credibility, the fabric of the campaign. If someone's like, what do you mean I just want some arrows, and the shopkeeper is going to be asking me to go on a quest for some arrows? Like, that seems kind of silly. But I think when framed in the fact that the Lord's not just going to give you some stuff or the hook, I think makes a lot more sense. And I think in the eyes of the player, I think that kind of politicking coming from someone who is a political entity makes a lot more sense than coming from somebody who essentially is just a faceless arm of commerce. If you're just some guy running the shop and it's not even the tavern, I mean, who goes for rumors outside the tavern anyway, kind of thing, then it probably doesn't make any sense. But when you have it being the Lord, you got some teeth behind it. And it makes the party, I think, maybe think a little bit more what they want to do, in terms of, do we want to go, right? If we make ourselves known to this Lord, hey, we're just passing through, Judd. We were down, I don't know, we were down here somewhere. We're just trying to get to Mewin, but it was getting dark, and we decided to get to Judd, and we realized we're kind of low on resources. We need a place to stay. Sure, we can ask the kind of local farmers, but do we go to that Lord? Because yeah, maybe they'll give us a place to stay. Maybe we'd like to make contact because we want to, thinking ahead to our hopefully upwardly mobile trajectory in the society around here, we'd like to become friends with lords and ladies and make inroads into that culture. But if we do that, that also means that we're on their radar in a way that may put us at risk or put us in their debt, or in other ways, either jeopardize us potentially, or at least force us to make hard choices. And I like all that decisions. And then if you're going to do something with domains later on, it's kind of a way to get them started down that path in thinking about, because they're going to learn a little bit about how domains work. Oh, so you mean if I have a castle, if I have this thing here and I have this little culture or society around me, everything kind of pulls into here. Oh, I get it. And then this becomes, and you can see how that then becomes eventually, if it gets prosper enough, as the keep becomes that center of where all trade and commerce and bartering takes place, it becomes more prosperous. It kind of gets too big, it spills out. Then you can see how these kind of towns are formed, where it's okay, well, the town, often with the keep at the center, is no longer is all about the support for commerce, as opposed to the villages and hamlets and little things that are all about creating the raw materials, then they get funneled up in there. So I feel like it helps paint the picture maybe of some kind of domainish stuff also. Hey, Ian, I'm waiting for your questions. I'm just droning on about this stuff that is interesting me at the moment, but really I'm here for you. So yes, AMA, Q&A, Q and Q, QVC, CBS, AMC, ABCDEFG. So throw me your questions. Throw them to me. I forgot I got some coffee out and about, and I kind of need to drink that too. I'm going back and forth. I'm double fisting a coffee and a tea. Nothing could go wrong. Well, technically it's a tisane. It doesn't have, this particular blend has no actual tea leaves in it. It's all botanicals, as they say on the tin. Ian asks, what is my favorite module adventure setting you've read in the past year? Man, I was just thinking about that, because I was thinking about it. It was one of these days I got to put together like a Christmas shopping, or not necessarily shopping. Yeah, kind of a Christmas list, sort of end of year list, maybe more like it. Let me see. Let me just look really quick here. If I go back and I go to, I don't even know where they all would be. Oh, let's see. What have I read? So we're reading Muster, but it's probably not going to, maybe that'll be done by the end of the year. Probably not actually kind of an adventure. Holmes and Clark, not really an adventure either, though it was fun. Let's see. Oh, that Doomsong, Kismet, those are more kind of system-y. FKR kind of system-y. Book of God was cool. We did a little Forbidden Lands. We looked at Project Sunflower. That was cool, but that's more than just it's more of a system. So is Atomic Highway that we looked at. Pirate Borg. When's the last time I looked at just an adventure? Gosh, so now I'm already back in September. Let's see. Oh, we got Troopers Red Hack. Oh yeah, but that's again more of a system. Workshopping. All right, great. We did all right. I worked on Kavalov Sanctuary, which I think is a cool mini setting with a lot of sandboxy kind of stuff. Magnus calls it Tifi. Yes. Ian, so give me a little more context. I wrapped up against the Cold of the Reptile God last night. That was a good time. I'm going to run Mothership and the Haunting of Ypsilon 14. Oh, that's cool. I still have to read Mothership. Mothership's on my list. So it's Kavalov Sanctuary. Let's see. Prismatic Wasteland, but that was an interview. I read the Dolmenwood preview. Geez, we're already back in July. Let's see. Hordes of, what was that? Oh, Tome of Beasts. Maybe I didn't cut. Did I not do a lot of it? Maybe I haven't done a lot of just flat adventures this year. That's what's feeling like to me. 5B. I've looked at a lot of. I feel like I've done a lot of systems, but not a lot of adventures. Ironwood Gorge. Oh yeah, Ironwood Gorge. We did that one. That one was cool. I think, if I'm remembering correctly. Ironwood Gorge was interesting. Yeah, we did Dragonbane, but that's more of a system. Morgan's Fort. Morgan's Fort was good. All right, I like Morgan's Fort. Troubleshooters was cool. Now I'm back in April. Evils of Ilmire. Oh, Evils of Ilmire. Fallcrest Abbey. Yeah, okay. I got to go way back. So I did a few kind of right, almost back to back to back. Let's see. We did, I looked at In the City of Forgotten Gods. Let's see, The Waking of Willoughby Hall, which I thought was interesting. Fallcrest Abbey, also pretty interesting. Evils of Ilmire, I liked a lot. It's my recollection. The thing is, I got to go back and kind of rewatch. I got to go back and rewatch those. But, they were Ziggurat of the Blood God. What else was there? Yeah, probably I'll say Evils of Ilmire. I think all things considered, if I had to pick one, I would probably say Evils of Ilmire. Terrence has said that silver something. So we did Tower of what was it? The Tower of what was his name? Silveraxe. But that was actually a couple years ago that we did that. Terrence also asked if it is Tifi like a Beertini. It might be. That Beertinis sound gross. All right, so Magnus is getting their game back together. Congrats on the child, and yeah, congrats on getting the game back. Magnus saying about their game, they're embroiled in a fight with some spiders while trying to rescue the local strongman. A fight they'll likely have to flee, after which they'll be out in the wilderness with little in the way of supplies or knowledge of the terrain. Yeah, so that's where. So getting into my recent discussion on kind of skills and whatnot, like there's some interesting possibilities there, right? Depending on Magnus on how much you know the wilderness, and are you going to have them kind of, are you tracking supplies? Is it easy for them to get back to town? Like I said, in Daniel's game, which I'll be playing in, tomorrow, the game I'll be in at tomorrow, Daniel's game, it's very zoomed out. We're kind of looking at, he's using, he's obviously not using this map, but we'll just be here. And then we'll just plot out, okay, we're going to go to Mewin, and then however many of these we get to in a day, and then somewhere in here, okay, roll for our encounter, roll to see if you're lost. And I think I want to say that if you get lost, you don't change directions just so much that you waste some amount of time, and then you tick on to the next one. And like I mentioned in the couple of videos I've done, that's totally fine. It's just a different style. It's just different ways of doing things. Whereas I like to zoom in on the ground. It's like, okay, you're leaving Judd and you're passing through some farm country, and then maybe I might make a roll in here because it's all pretty much farm as much as they can see. But if the party says we're following the edge of the woods, then they'll follow the edge of the woods, right? So depending on what they say, I might roll to see if they kind of end up going slightly off course. But if they're following the woods, they're going to stick to the woods. That kind of thing. And so I won't roll. I won't roll for that. I'll roll for a wandering monster type thing, or wandering creature, or wandering farmer. But I'm not going to roll if they get lost. But, if they just say, oh, we go through the farmland, then I might see, well, they could, all these farmlands in kind of all directions, but probably they wouldn't just go this one. But maybe do they end up going more that way or more north kind of thing. Magnus says a general idea of how to roll this, mainly thanks to my channel. Appreciate it. Any tips and tricks? I think just you lean on the rule books that you have, Magnus. For example, if you're using BX, it's got rules in there, and it's got wandering creature lists, and you can use those until you build up enough of your own. And if it's something that you don't, I think now if you have time, right, if you have time before your session and you want to customize those tables of creatures and things, then I would recommend doing it, because then you'll get results that are more meaningful to you. Or you could just leave it wide open and use the BX lists, in which case they can be a lot of fun, but they can also be, I think I remember I've gotten, Gorgons and dragons. A couple of times I've gotten dragons, And you can get some really kind of odd, dangerous, and interesting things in there, but the context may not always make the most sense. So you kind of got to have to think about it when you get Gorgon. Think, okay, they're leaving Judd, they're coming through, they're out here, and they're leaving, say, 12.18 towards 13.17, and I roll Gorgon. Like, are there usually Gorgons around here? I could roll again, or I could try to figure out, well, how does a Gorgon fit in this? It's kind of pasture land. It's just kind of grassland. I feel my idea had been that in between Judd and Mewin, it's kind of tame. There's certainly have forestry and stuff, so there is danger. And then you have, the mountains and ruins. So there definitely is, there can be incursions of dangerous stuff that filters out this way. But man, a Gorgon, I'm not even sure if I have Gorgons in my game. Kind of what is it doing here? What does it want? What, all those kind of things. And then you can think like, well, I'm just going to roll again, which is also totally acceptable. Or you can think about, okay, maybe somebody they pissed off in Judd was a mighty wizard and summoned the Gorgon. And so they actually, and I might even have that show up. Like if that's how I end up, like, oh yeah, in my case, in my old game, it would have been like Bogwig. Oh, maybe Bogwig was able to do something to summon a Gorgon. So I might even have, the shimmering portal open up and the Gorgon charge out and then close up. And then the party at least know that, oh, this is literally not natural. It's not just wandering the countryside kind of thing. But to the extent that you have, if you have the time and the will to kind of create your own lists, then you can make stuff that's going to fit, and you can fit in all kinds of your own things, because the BX lists or whichever list from like D&D, if you're using kind of old school kind of D&D lists, are going to be sort of like everything in the kitchen sink thrown in there. Hey, Tom Termini says, what do I think about terrain features and weather events as entries in the Hexcrawling encounters that aren't the bog standard bandits or goblins, e.g. cliffs, obstruct passage, or crazy torrential rains? I mean, you can do it that way. You can absolutely do it. I like to do weather separately because I like to have those interplays between the weather and the encounter. So what happens if you meet the Gorgon and it's also in a torrential downpour, or it's super windy and the bandits are there? Like, I like seeing like, how does the weather affect the other thing? So I wouldn't want to merge them together myself, because I want to be able to play the two things together potentially. And it just adds a whole other dynamic situation. In terms of things like cliffs, it kind of depends on how I'm doing with terrain. So here, where I feel like I have all the terrain, and it like if I rolled up, let's say again, I'm 12-18, I decide to roll to see they're going. Where's the little pointery thingy? Party's going like this, and then I just roll randomly cliffs. I don't know. Might seem a little weird. It might be like, well, why couldn't we see cliffs from, like, it's like, what, this is wide open. Like, couldn't you see it? Like, why would we just walk up to a cliff? I'm not sure. But if it's something where I'm generating the terrain on the fly kind of ahead of it, then yeah, maybe you get cliffs. And I would just probably want to generate it. I would want to generate it up so I could set up the cliffs looming ahead before they just kind of show up and it's like cliffs. Oh God, how do we get to the bottom of a cliff? Kind of thing. But you could certainly have other things to obstruct. You could be talking about walking into some kind of valley kind of thing. Like there's a dip and there's like little hills here, and that's not enough to change the terrain type, but they're there. You could play around with if you have a main type of terrain and then subtype, kind of like these down here, where it's it's a forest, but it's also kind of mountainous sort of thing. You could play around with that as well. But I like the idea. I just would roll twice. Roll once for those kind of weather, or maybe even 3 times. One for weather, one for terrain, sub-hex terrain features, if you will, and then the third one for creatures. And that way you can get some really cool, like what happens when we meet a dragon and it's at the top of the cliff and we're at the bottom of the cliff, or we're like then you get this cool stuff like, okay, what's going on? That I like a lot. I would just roll them separately for me. Let's see. Magnus, going back to their game, says that they're not far from town, but the area they're in is a dense woodland, and the PCs themselves are not overly familiar with the area. Yeah, so what you want to balance there, Magnus, if they are really close to town, for example, these are dense woodlands, at least by the symbology. Remember, this is not my map, so I didn't make it, but assuming these are dense woodlands, yeah, they are dense. At the same time, being so close, you have to think that woodcutters and hunters and folks are probably hitting these up pretty good. So I would expect to find maybe little timber operations going on here. Maybe you find a hunter's hut, or maybe trappers. You find some trappers stuff. maybe a little tanning thing, right? You're going to find stuff in here. Then, of course, if they're back here, maybe nothing. Then you get a little bit, and then you get more and more, and then maybe more over here. So that's kind of how I would do it. And then Magnus says, WJ says, what does a Cyclops need with sunglasses? Shouldn't it be a sun monocle? That's a good point. Good point. Magnus says, I'm mainly worried about accidentally making the situation too frustrating. Well, I think what you could do, Magnus, is there should be, they'll put stuff in here. Not necessarily helpful, but this is where you could have something of interest. Like maybe there's an old tower here and it's a ruin. But of course, that means that something's inside, right? Or potentially inside. What is it? And then, of course, you could think about, well, how does that tower relate to things going on in Judd? Maybe it's meaningful, maybe it's not. Maybe there is some old barrows here or a pool. So the party can still run across interesting stuff without it being just a death march. Hey, Death Cap Stories, how are you? Let's see. What else we got here? Micro terrain. Yep, I think subhex feature, Tom. We're talking the same way. So yeah, if you're having cliffs and things, you just have to keep it at a level where it makes sense that it wouldn't have been noted, not just noted on the map, but just noted visually, right? Like, well, it's like massive, like the Cliffs of Doom are there, like in what was in The Princess Bride? It was like the Cliffs of Despair, like towering thousands of feet in the air. Right? You're not going to not see that from far, far away, but smaller things, absolutely. And then you could roll to see that where the party happens to be walking when they end up with all this confluence events that happens to find them as they're, kind of up against a little bit of a bowl in one of these little valleys where the cliffs are kind of rising up. And of course, if you're in forest and things that don't give you a lot of line of sight, then you even have more room to be more severe in the features than you do when you're, out here in open country. A condensed or pressed hex. Yes, a pressed hex, pray tell. Let's see. Magnus says, I'll have to check their notes or roll up some features to the area. It might be good to throw some less hostile encounters on the table. Yeah, they don't all have to be hostile. And remember to use your reaction rolls. Just because they run in some goblins doesn't mean the goblins are there to kill them. I mean, they might be, but they might not be. Animals too. Just because they run to an animal doesn't mean the animal has a taste for human or humanoid blood. It could just be there. Feel free to roll that encounter distance. Put things far away. Sometimes even if they can't see them, I like to put them at some other kind of sense distance. So you might, in the forest, maybe you don't see the thing, but you hear it, smell it, right? I mean, and a lot of it's going to depend on the party. If the party's in a situation like I think they might be, Magnus, I'm going to tend to say that if they're down, they're kind of, they're low on hit points and they're, they got spit out in the wilderness, they're probably going to try to make a beeline for town, right? They're probably not going to want to check out what's here or here or here. They're probably going to say like, nope, we're going to keep going. But at the same time, they might need clues to where they're going because they don't know that Judd's here. They're wandering. They don't know. So that means that you can put places here that are going to have some kind of appeal. Maybe there's an old homestead. Maybe there is an old tower. And those are going to have some appeal because they might have clues, and you can even kind of reinforce that. Maybe if there's a clue there, that might give them an idea. Like if there's a tower, maybe they can kind of do a Bilbo Baggins, go to the top of the tower and then look out and try to spot Judd. Or maybe there's somebody there that they can ask for help. If they find like a hermit's hovel over here, maybe that person knows, so on and so forth. So there can be reasons for them in that situation to investigate. But if they know where they're going or they have an inkling where they're going, they're probably going to try to beeline there. And so you're kind of trying to tempt them potentially, or you just put them there, just see if they bite or not. Probably not, but you never know. Terrence says, non-hostile encounter idea. A bear dresses like a bee attempting to con the local hive of their honey. Are these Pooh Bears we've spotted? You run across a tribe of Pooh Bears all dressed up as bees, and they smell of honey, and their fur is sticky. Certainly a possibility. Oh, WJ talking about Talisman. I loved Talisman back in the day. What was the original thing on Talisman? How did folks get on Talisman? Talisman, the Horus Heresy? Wow, interesting. I'd like to get my old Talisman board. Well, I have to rebuy them because I lost them ages ago. The old Talisman board games were a lot of fun. I'd love to see if I could get my daughter to play them with me. Magnus talking about the Pooh Bears says basically Ewoks, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing as a GM you have to keep in mind. You got to keep in mind where your party's aims are. Because I think one thing that'd be frustrating is your party has been given, and a lot of times it's coming from you as a GM. So keep that in mind. A lot of times this is your doing. You say something like, "You've got to get to me when as fast as humanly possible. The BBEG is gonna, marry the prince or princess or whomever in 2 days. So you got to get there." And the party says, "Okay, we're going." And then you start throwing out, then they're making their way and you start like, "Look, there's this thing over here. Look, there's this thing over here and over here and over here and over here and over here." And the party just goes, "Nope, nope, 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 nope. We got to get to Mewin." That should not be a bad thing. And you should not get frustrated if the party does beeline to Mewin because they're basically taking seriously what you said. If you say you got to get to Mewin in 2 days, otherwise all horrible things are going to happen, and then you start laying stuff around here, and the party's like, "Okay, we'll spend a day here. Okay, we'll go down here. Okay, we'll go up here," then something's wrong. Either they don't care about whatever's happening here, whatever that thing is that you think is super important, they don't care, or they're doing like video game logic where what always bothered me, where there's someone's like, you have to get to Mewin and do this thing. And then it doesn't matter how long you take, there's always that guy waiting there or whomever waiting there with a little diamond over their head. And until you actually talk to them, it doesn't trigger the thing that this is going to happen. It's supposed to happen in 2 days, but you could spend 2 years. It doesn't matter because you have to, it won't trigger until you go talk to the guy. So if your party's bypassing stuff, trying to get to finish the task that they're on, I look at that as that's a good thing. That shows your party is caring about what's happening. Now, why they care, I don't, could be many reasons. Could just be pure advancement, pure and simple, but that probably means that their minds are in the world. Like, no, we got to get there. We got to stop it. We don't want a bad person to marry the kid. So we got to hustle. So don't get frustrated. Don't let that frustrate you. If you put a time clock on your players and they honor it, you should feel like, yeah, man, that's good. And then just save all that stuff for later. Magnus says they've kind of been railroaded in this situation by an NPC. So ultimately me. So hoping this will be an opportunity for them to move around a bit more freely. Yeah. So they're probably going to have to get to town first. Right. So there's not much freedom for them at this point, right? There's freedoms. There's a couple of ways to look at freedom as sort of a thing. There's the freedom of you can go anywhere you want, but there's not much freedom if there's not real choice. And by me is real choice. Like if you're out here and not knowing anything about the game and all you can see is this, and you can't even see this, pretend this bit over here. Let me say, all you see is this, and you're over here. Here's where you are. And the GM says you can go anywhere you want. It's a meaningless choice because you have no way of differentiating what any of those are. It doesn't matter. It's like you're rolling a die. Just roll a die and pick because there's nothing, right? That's one way in which you can get fooled as a GM to think like, but look, they have freedom. And really they got the choice between nothing, 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 and nothing because there's no differentiation. There's no way to weigh one direction from another. It's like, do I feel like going east? Do I feel like going west? I can't. What do I see when I look at east? Endless grasslands as far as the eye can see. How about west? Endless grasslands as far as the eye can see. Well, then it doesn't matter which way to go. Then the other way is that, which Magnus might be closer to yours, is like they're basically starving. They need resources. So they're over here. They need resources. Sure, technically they can go anywhere but they kind of need to go to town. And so I would really think about is once they get to this town, once they've been able to resupply, then it more opens up and it's more like, okay, what do you want to do? Because right now they're working off of need. We don't have resources. We don't know where we're going. Like, we need to get to the first settlement we can find. So yes, we have a choice in terms of which direction we go, but it kind of is like whichever way the settlement is kind of the way we have to go. Like, we don't really have too much of a choice. Technically, yeah, we can choose to march off into the wastes and die, but we don't want to. Hopefully, if your party decides that we're just going to wander out in the wastes and die, that probably speaks to problems in your campaign. They're probably going to be like, wherever the nearest settlement is, we're going. And I think so there's not too much choice there, but then once they are able to get to town and there's nothing pressing and there's nothing pushing them, there's no NPC running to them in the tavern and saying, now that you're here, you have to go do this thing. Then maybe you can start to introduce, and really you can even talk to them directly and say, okay, what would you guys like to do? This is, what I would do is once they get to town. So right now they're in crisis. They're trying to solve this crisis. We're lost, we're hungry, and we're wounded. We need to get to a safe place. Once they get there and they've done that, okay, we're here, and hopefully we've got enough coin in our pocket so that we're not begging we can get shelter, something to eat, lick our wounds, that sort of thing, regroup. Then I think I would just be open to the players, like, okay, you guys are in Judd. Look, this is where, and you can give that kind of state of the world. Here's what we know. You were doing this thing for this person. Okay, that didn't work, or whatever happened. Wherever they are, maybe they're far, whatever. Like, that's happening. You're in Judd. Nobody knows that you were here working for the man or whatever, right? You could kind of reset the situation, and then, I like to be open to players. Like, well, players and your characters, what do you want to do? Like, what are you guys feeling like? Here's what's going on in the world. The guy you were working for previously or doing the thing for, whatever you were doing over there, that's still happening. You can find out, you can go to the tavern, or you can put your ears to the ground and try to figure out what's going on here in Judd. The taverns are busy. It seems stuff's going on. You can try to figure out what that is. Now that you're here, that a mere day's ride up the road is Mewin, which is the regional capital, and there's probably stuff going on up there, so on and so forth. You've heard that there's this thing, assuming this is not where they came from, that there's something down, whatever that is, down there, or there's something down here, or is there anything? There's something way down there. You can kind of start planting those more seeds or giving them ideas. Right? Does that make sense? Noxious Bones said to be careful when eating our turkeys this year. I've heard they turn you to stone. At least I think it's the same bird. Could be. Quest for the golden hot dish of Lord You Betcha. Nice. And Terrence says, FYI, wounds taste terrible. I believe you. Magnus says that they make it back to town, they'll hopefully have the rescued local strongman in tow, which will ingratiate themselves with the locals, to say the least. And we can also have Magnus. It's a little bit of a cheat, but not necessarily. Is the strongman, assuming he survives and makes it out with them, could guide them back to town. Right. So that could be a way if you want to kind of get them to town, especially because I think the thing is, like, you're coming back to your game after some kind of prolonged absence. Getting everybody back in the mode, kind of in the middle of a combat or whatever, it's going to be like a lot. So what I might do in that situation, my game's on hiatus. If it were to come back tomorrow, I would probably, whatever we were doing in that moment, I'm probably not going to kick it up in that moment. I'm probably going to say, you know what, whatever that was, it happened. You guys managed to stumble your way back to town, and we're going to kind of reset. So in your case, what I'd probably do is say, okay, look, we haven't played for a few months, and I don't want to just bring you back in the middle of combat or even right before or after the combat. We don't even really remember. We're only half remembering our characters, half remembering what we were doing. So what I'm going to do is, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to narrate, say, this is what happened. After a tough battle with the spider, blah, 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 you got the strong man. You guys made it back to town. The strong man guided you back, paid you off or whatever the gift or whatever prize was, and now you're in town. Here's what's happening in town. Here's what you've heard about the surrounding area as you spent a week or two in, for example, Judd, healing and getting ready and living off of your name recognition here in town and the goodwill of the local strongman. Here's what you now know about what's going on that's been happening in the region locally and then in the wider region since you've been gone and now since you've been back, what would you guys like to do? That's probably how I would handle it. And that way you can kind of start fresh. This is one thing if you miss a couple of sessions and then you go back. But after a few months, I don't know. I wouldn't. I probably wouldn't myself. I probably wouldn't bother with the spider fight. Just go straight to, all right, you guys have gone back to town, and if you feel like it's cheap because they didn't defeat the big bad and kind of fully earn the strong man, you can always tweak the rewards that they get to kind of like, okay, you didn't technically you didn't defeat everybody, so instead of getting the full reward, I'll give you 80%. And you don't even have to tell them it. But I don't even think I'd really bother. I would just be like, hey, you know what? You get back. You get back. We're back in this town now, and we can kind of reset the scenes. I can update things with all the stuff that I've been thinking about for the past few months. It's happened in this town. It happened in the surrounding area, and I can drop all these new plot hooks in the waters. And okay, guys, what do you want to do? That's probably what I might do. Magnus says, ooh, I might do that. Maybe if I don't plant them right back in town, they can already be on the way back. That'll still give some travel time to get to know a couple of key people. Sure, you can do it on the road. Don't forget, Magnus, probably when they get back to town, there's going to be all kinds of parties and celebrations and feast days for this rescue. So you have many different avenues if you do want to do some RP between people. And you could also use that if you do want to start on the road back. That's another way where you can kind of hint at the things that have been happening in the interim. So I don't know how long they've been gone on this quest, but if there are various things are happening, you can use changes to the environment to kind of showcase what's going on. That's another thing to do. So you have a bunch of options. You have a bunch of options. Magnus says celebration for most, but the rival noble isn't going to be too happy. Well, that's cool. And that opens up a whole new can of worms, right, for the party to address. It's okay. You brought this guy back, or you're bringing him back. And now the bad guy's coming. I mean, you can even start with that, Magnus. That might be a nice, fun thing, is a confrontation with the rival noble's men outside the town that they've been scoped on approach, maybe at night or dusk. Some riders ride up, maybe just out of eye line of the town, so the townsfolk don't see them doing it, and they're going to try to. And then you can have if you want to have a nice kind of fight to jazz things up and introduce things, you can do that too. There was Silverado, which has been on my mind of late, had a great a little sequence. If you haven't seen Silverado, I'm going to be doing a little bit of spoilers, but it's from like 1986. So if you haven't seen it, shame on you. Go check it out. It's one of my favorite films. Scott Glenn plays they're all kind of gunslingers. So you got these gunslingers. Scott Glenn plays a gunslinger who had gotten out of prison, I think. And when you first see him, you don't know he's gotten out of prison. He's in a cabin, some sort of remote cabin somewhere, like a little sleeping spot, like a place where you just might, I don't even know if they never explain what it is. It seems like it might just be some kind of clapboard shack that people put up to sleep in when they're traveling from place to place. So he's in there. He gets attacked by several armed men. Then it's a kind of a neat scene because he's inside the cabin and they're climbing. I think he hears them climbing on the roof, and he's an excellent gunslinger. So, he's shooting him up there, shooting him out the door, whatever. So when he goes outside, he ends up getting, I think he has his horse, and he finds another horse out there, and he takes the horse and he's doing stuff. And then finally he comes and he's trying to get to his hometown, basically, which is Silverado. So he gets to Silverado, and there's other things going on, but then kind of the bad guys of Silverado are there, or there's bad guys there, and we learn more about his story. But basically the upshot is that one of the henchmen of the bad guy sees Scott Glenn with that horse, and he tells his boss, like, hey, isn't that like so-and-so's horse? And Scott Glenn overhears them. And of course, so there's a nice reveal there of Scott Glenn then goes over and looks at his horse, the brand on that horse that he took from the dead man. At first, he didn't recognize it. We don't really see him looking at it, but he just was in the brand. But then he realizes that the bad guys who he had pissed off, which is why he was in jail, had changed their brand, and this was their new brand. So it was this new, the connection there, that these guys, it just thought it might have just been random in the beginning. No, that was their first attempt for them to try to get Scott Glenn off the board. So I do all that to say, if you had some bandits or other types attack the party on their way to town, maybe they're wearing something or they have an emblem of theirs, something that could later on be revealed or could potentially be investigated to be revealed as belonging to the rival noble person. So you can have some fun with, well, it's just bandits on the road, but they're all wearing some kind of weird symbol. And then you take that weird symbol, and then later on you find out, oh, the nobleman, maybe he's part of a cult or some other group or something, and that's their symbol. So it can be kind of a fun thing that so I feel like if you kill some bandits or capture them, whatever, and they're all wearing one of the, some kind of mark, you're going to note the mark. I feel like that's kind of obviously, they might not, but you know, and then if they do, you can kind of reward that by later on having that mark be revealed, so they can kind of have a chance to discover their enemy and make it a little bit more subtle, perhaps, or perhaps not. It's kind of it's not exactly a super subtle approach, but you can have some fun with it. Okay, Magnus says there's another wrinkle. The rival noble's daughter is the strong man's wife. Well, it's a family affair. That happens. What else have we got? Magnus says there's a local bandit faction being run by yet another disgruntled former gentry whose brother the PCs have already met, but even he doesn't know that connection yet. Oh, well, good. Well, you got some nice factions working. Well done. Did I miss anything else in the chat? So what else have you guys got for me? Everything, nothing. Do I have anything else I can blather on about in the meantime? Someday I'm going to go see you, Judd. Someday I'm going to do something with this map. I just need to fix. I know I did this last time I had one of these streams. I was thinking about how I'd want to fix all these. I think I wanted to move. I think Palin, it just makes sense if all things being equal, should be kind of over here to help guard the bridge. And then maybe Judd should be, I feel like the defensive perimeter, I feel like this is too wide. So I would want to maybe have another castle in here if I had my druthers. Well, I appreciate it, Magnus. I'm glad the videos have worked for you. Let's see. What else can I talk about in the interim? I don't know if I have anything. I don't know. I don't know. Let me see. I do really like weather, and I like subhex features. I want to say D30 Sandbox Companion. If whoever asked about subhex features, was that Tom? They call him Tom. If Tom was still here, the D30 Sandbox Companion, I think, has a bunch of that. If you happen to have the ready reference sheets from Judges Guild, they also did a good job, though I don't like to recommend them anymore because of the issues. But if you have it secondhand or something, then that also works. But I think the D30 Sandbox Companion can be good for getting an initial list. I'm sure there are other ones, other resources as well. What else? What else? Is there anything else? Tom's still here. Good. Yeah, D30 Sandbox Companion. I'm sure there are other ones, but that one is the one that comes first of mind. I'm sure Worlds without number or anything like that? I don't think so. Not sure who else has it. Yeah, Judges Guild. The Judges Guild stuff it's very idiosyncratic, but it's a lot of fun. It's they're very much of their time. Another nice thing about the D30 stuff is just much better organized. Whenever I try to use the ready reference sheets, I feel like it always takes me a little time to get my eyes in the right mindset, to get my brain to be able to figure out like how they've organized things in that book. Oh, cool. Yeah, Terrence has got the D30. Yep. Another topic. Linked NPC encounters to adjacent hexes. How detailed to maintain the links? How detailed? Oh, Tom, west of Ireland. Nice. I have my sister's in-laws. Are they also in the west? No, they would be on the east of Ireland, which I had the pleasure of visiting a couple times, but I never got to go west. I would like to go west sometime. NPC encounters, linked NPC are encounters of how detailed to maintain the links. I don't think they have to last very long, right? So I imagine, and Tom, you can correct me if I'm off, but for example, let's say you have wolves show up here, and then maybe their lair is over here, something like that. Or maybe you've got another one I could see being is you have sort of a bandit patrol here, and then the bandit camp is here. Something like that, right? Well, I think a lot of them will kind of sort themselves out. I don't need to worry about it. Like for the, so if there's a wolf lair here, I'd want to mark it down. I'd want to mark it down and then keep that. And then if wolves just show up in these other hexes, that's just them wandering around. I just presume that if you have a wolf lair here, that in basically, and I know wolves, I think they, that their roaming zone, their zone of roaming around might be, I mean, it's probably something like that. Or even could even be bigger, depending on the size of your hexes, of course. Like their range where you can get random encounters is here. And I don't think I really need to track any more connections, but obviously if the party encounter wolves here, let's say, and they were interested in finding the lair, I'd want it, and I know the lair is here, then maybe that would give me a way to say, oh yeah, you follow the tracks, and the tracks go, whatever, go back, and you could kind of do that. In terms of the bandits in the camp, kind of the same thing. It's kind of a lair. If you mean linked, like there's guy A here and then guy B here, and it's sort of, these two sort of depend on each other. I'm trying to think of what that could be. Then yeah, you just want to mark it in some way so that just a little note, like, hey, guy A here, and then put a little note, right? Hates guy in B. Guy A in 14.19 has a death feud with guy B in 15.18. And then you can put a little checkbox or however you're marking it up. You're doing it digitally or in analog. You could put checkbox, just cross something out, put a note, whatever. If they happen to encounter guy A, and then encounter guy A says, if you go and you take out guy B, I'll give you something. Then great, the party kind of has their orders, and of course you want to know. Or if they don't, so guy B sends them to guy A. Or if they kill guy A, then guy B, that connection's no longer there, but maybe if they tell guy B somehow, that guy B will say, woohoo, thank you for helping me, kind of thing. So I think ultimately the amount of details you want is just enough to make sure you're on point for yourself. Whatever's going to make your brain say like, oh yeah, that's the thing. If it's a lot, then write a lot. If it's a little, write a little. If it's just a little note will do it, then just write it out. If it's not super important, it doesn't even, you just say, oh yeah, guy B and A and B are rivals. A in 14.19 is a rival with B in 15.18. And then you can usually leave it at that. And then in the moment, you can decide what that rivalry means. But if you want to be more concrete and you don't want to leave it up to the whims of the moment, then, write out more. Tom says, here's 3 hexes for my campaign, ... Ooh, also thriving D&D community in Ireland. I didn't know that. I didn't really have a chance to check out any gaming stuff when I was in Ireland, unfortunately. But I had a really nice time. I really like Ireland's pretty, and it certainly is green. I just remember thinking when I got off the plane and we're driving from Dublin down to, they live outside Dundalk. If you're familiar with Dundalk, if you're familiar with the Dundalk area, my sister's in-laws, not my ex, and yes, not my in-laws, it's my sister's in-laws are from the area roundabout Dundalk. And it's very nice, very green. And I did get to go to, what's the place? The big mound, the really cool ancient mound. I got to visit that. That was a lot of fun. All right, so Tom, Hex 111-119. In a frozen stream, the landscape transitions into a dense, enchanted fog. Shadowy figures move, whispering ancient incantations, the spectral remnants of the Wendigos, victims cursed. Hey, got his puppy in Dundalk. Very good. Very good. Yep. So I've been there a couple times. Got to go to the cathedral in Dundalk and see the what's the saint? I forget not Dundalk. It was in Drogheda. And it's the saint. What saint is it? It's not Saint Newgrange. Yep, Newgrange. That was a lot of fun. Newgrange was really cool. That was kind of a bucket list kind of thing to go see. Really, really nice. I'm Magnus. I think people have asked me before. I'd be happy to. If you don't mind me, if you're happy to share it, I'm happy to look at it. I think it's a lot of fun, and I liked grabbing stuff every once in a while from Reddit when I was on Reddit. And since I no longer frequent Reddit, I'd be happy to take a look at ones. And I have a whole forum where you can post stuff and get extended discussions. Forums.hexed.press. I have to manually approve signups, so if you sign up and you're not automatically in, that's because I have to approve you. But there's a spot I can even make. If people are going to use it, I'll make a thread where folks can share their hex maps for review. I'd love to do it. I would love to. And then we got another hex from Tom1120. Emerging from the mystical fog, the terrain shifts to petrified forest with trees frozen in various states. Petrified trees are rumored to contain the essence of the Wendigo's malevolence. The only thing, Tom, you want to be careful of is that your hexes read like they're linear. Like you're basically going in a straight line. And it might not be a problem for you, but if you have like frozen stream here and then fog here, the fog, your description for the fog assumes they're coming from the frozen stream here. But what if they're coming from down here? So I like to try to, and again, though, it doesn't matter so much as for your game, but it's for your own kind of brain thing. If just make sure you keep in mind that the stream is in this hex and the stream is not here, then if they come from the other one, if you're going to end up saying that stuff aloud, make sure you know that, oh, they didn't come from the stream. So don't mention stream, just mention, maybe all this area is foggy. I'm not sure. And then the last one is 1121. At the heart of the petrified forest, a massive stone monolith stands, covered in frost. Ancient glyphs barely visible beneath the ice tell the tale of a long forgotten battle. Oh, I like that. That one's nice. I mean, they're all nice, but just remember about the fog kind of thing. Again, I'm making assumptions here, right? If you're running it for yourself, you probably know, but remember that you can hit that hex. I mean, assuming there's nothing special going on, you can hit it from any number of directions. So if there's only a stream here and they're coming from over here, if you mention stream, they're going to go, what? Huh? Oh, I assume they would. Oh, did we pass the stream and did we not know it? But yeah, those are cool. Very flavorful, which I like. My cat just sneezed. Bless you, Bruce. Last call. What are you using? Are you drawing out your hexes, Tom? Are you keeping them just in text form? Your descriptions are they got a lot of sharp, what's the word I'm looking for? Sharp imagery. I can really picture strongly. Magnus says I'll have to scan. Oh, nice. You can don't forget, Magnus. You can just take a picture. Just take a picture with your phone. Just hold your phone over the top. Snap. Easy peasy. The phones do a pretty good job these days. Now, granted, it's not as great as a scan if I was using it for pseudo professional non-sensory, but for just posting somewhere, just take a picture. Tom's got a large scale map. Nice. Do you do yours electronically, Tom, or are you drawing it out by hand? What's your mode? And what are you using for your this came up in one, so I'll ask you guys this. Maybe my last thing is Tom says each hex is ... detailed. Yes, I mean it seems that way. If those are, I imagine, just those little capsule descriptions are very detailed. The question I have for you guys, maybe as we're wrapping up here, what are you guys using for those of you who are writing up hex contents alongside their hex map? What are you using? Are you using just, I saw this, it was asked on one of the discords that I'm on, and I don't have a great answer for myself. I kind of go back and forth. Are you using a notebook? Are you using a spreadsheet? Are you using some kind, are you a notebook that's separate from the map itself? So you maybe have the map on one piece of paper and then you have some kind of notebook that references the map. Are you using some kind of notebook that has hex paper in it and then your hex or dot grid or something you can kind of convert to hexes and doing it that way? Are you using Excel? Are you using Obsidian or Notion or something like that digitally? What are you guys using? Tom says hand drawn to scan and then Photoshop. Oh wow, Fancy, Tom. Fancy with the Photoshop work. Oh, wow. You go with a topo? Man, I'm gonna want to see some of your maps someday, Tom. They seem fascinating. I think topographical maps are cool, but they're kind of beyond me. I don't think I want to take the time. They seem more work than I want to put in. I end up going for something pretty simple like this because it gives me kind of everything I need. Now, granted, you don't get elevation here, other than the fact that you've kind of like taller kind of peaks to smaller peaks to woods, so you can kind of presume some kind of elevation. But man, I feel like those Tower Silver Axe kind of maps that are all beautiful elevation maps. Too much for me at this point. Tom says they keep their hexes detailed in the spreadsheet, then move the published version to a PDF. Wow, that's you do a yeoman's work there, Tom. Magna says they sort of draft on a legal pad, then use a map sheet from the D30 guys, some loose leaf paper for the key in a spread in a binder. Oh, cool. That's very practical. All right. Well, I would love to see it, Tom. Again, go to forums.hex.press. I will make a thread and we can post all the stuff in here because YouTube kind of stinks for that kind of thing. And everywhere else is kind of proprietary. I mean, I know my forums might be proprietary to you, but it's native to me and I control it. It's mine. So no one's going to boot me off my forums. Not that I get booted off places, but you know. In these hard times, one never knows. But Tom, I would love to see your maps. Magnus, I would love to see your maps. You out there, I would love to see your maps. So I will make a forum post and I will add it to the comments. It'd be great to do something like that and to do some kind of like looking at different folks' hex maps. I think that stuff really will help. I mean, I'm fascinated by it, and I think people find it useful because oftentimes when your only exposure to stuff is kind of professional work, it's very daunting. It seems more mysterious. I think just seeing people doing it using whatever tools they have on hand, it's just a great way to help show somebody like, look, you can do with whatever you have. You don't have to have all kinds of crazy stuff. You can just do it with this. Look what this person's been doing. Yeah, I need to do an updated how to hex crawl video. I haven't checked that one, but I've heard people have mentioned GFC before, so I need to go see what they're on about. I should probably make an updated how to hex crawl video too. Ian says only hex maps adds random hex overlay. Oh, cool. All right, folks. Well, I guess I'm gonna sign off here. Look in the comments if you come back to this thing later on. You can go to forums.hex.press. Literally, as soon as I log off here, I will create that thread, and then I will attach it to a comment to this on YouTube. So you can go to the forums and just look there because it'll be one of the first things that will pop up. Or you can come back to this video, this stream in like 10 minutes, and I'll have it up. Other than that, folks, thanks so much for hanging out. Good luck with your hex crawls and hex maps and all other kinds of wilderness adventure and just whatever tabletop role-playing thing you're doing. Game on, and I'll talk to you later. Bye, everybody.